Lacrosse. We are off after a hiatus. While first order of business is to congratulate and check in with Greg Beecher, who does the most of the magic, some of the magic behind the scenes. And Greg, you have a brand new hip. How's it going?
It's going good. The hip is healing. I'm now off a walker, so I don't feel quite as useless, I will say. So I walked around with a cane. It's a little embarrassing. I did have to go to one varsity lacrosse game with my walker and walking across the track. My nephew was nice enough to tell me it was embarrassing. I looked old. So, but other than that, everything is healed up, and I'm off the walker, so I'm a little less embarrassing for those guys. Yeah, huge shout out to Charity. She threw all this work together to get it together. We have missed the insight, definitely. Thank you guys so much, and I will pop back out and let you guys run the show.
And you know what? You're going to look younger and younger as you fully recover. That hip replacement surgery was just a week ago, which is why we didn't do the show last Wednesday. So kudos to Greg and kudos to Charity for jumping in and, as always, and helping. I'm Steven Stampa with Adam Levi, and welcome back to the show, everyone. It is great to be back, and has been a wild stretch in the NLL here. I don't know about you down in New York, Adam. We had that crazy ice storm. We were that power for like 12 hours on Sunday, which we were actually quite lucky because there are areas between here and Peterborough that are still without power. So how are things in New York?
Yeah, I remember that storm was pretty bad, and I'm glad that you guys got through it and you were still able to do the incredible work that you do for Inside Lacrosse, which I know all of our readers and viewers are very happy about. That is just the way you are, though, Stamper, always persevering through it all for the benefit of lacrosse. I don't want to brag too much because the weather in New York has been, while it's gotten a little colder, it's been great. We have not had snowstorms, ice storms, or anything, but that spring is on the way. It would be nice if it was coming a little sooner, but it's not fully here yet.
Yeah, it's been crazy here. Like we had last week or sometime in the last week and a half or so, it was 21 degrees one day, which is about 74 Fahrenheit, I think. And then it snowed the next day. And we had the ice storm. It's been wild. Things have been pretty wild.
Is that not normal, Stamper? Is that to go from 74?
In Calgary, for sure, where they have Chinook, but not so much here in South Central Ontario. Let's look at the results. We're going to take a quick peek at the Week 17 results. You can see how we did. I was 4-3. Adam, you went 5-2, and pretty solid week, I guess, for both of us. More so for you. We're not going to spend much time on that. We'll jump ahead to Week 18 and really dive in to what was happening. First, looking at the results, and I swear we're not jumping to this one and spending more time because I was 4-1 and you were 2-3. It's just because it's the most recent week. But some wild games in this one. Anything jump out for you? I mean, I'm sure a lot of things jump out, but 3 1-goal games, all of them very exciting.
Yeah, all incredibly exciting games. Andrew Q does it again in Georgia. I mean, it just feels like he is the go-to guy in clutch time down in that area. So huge win for them. It really feels like the Halifax Thunderbirds are kind of the cardiac kids now. I feel like that was Halifax, maybe Albany earlier in the season, or Calgary and Albany earlier in the season. But that win against Rochester, I think, was very, very significant for them, not only to increase their chances of hosting a home playoff game, but they've been snake bitten a couple times earlier this season in the final seconds. And so for them to be on the other side of that now is huge for them.
The win by Rochester. Yeah, you said the win against Rochester, but against San Diego, obviously a huge one for them, especially because, and we'll talk about that a bit more, but in the next segment, but especially because they had the big lead and it kind of just withered away, and they got tied up and had to go right down to the stretch. We're going to take a look at the Georgia Halifax game in some more detail. And one of the things I want to look at is Caleb Benedict, rookie player. He missed all of last year after being drafted. He had some injuries, so he's getting to play. Hasn't played a ton, but there sometimes comes a point in a young player's career where you can just see he's starting to click. He's starting to get comfortable. Just the way they carry themselves on the floor, right, can be quite different.
Oh, 100%. And, there are some really good young players on that team. And I know you're going to get into a guy like Torin Eccleston. But yeah, Caleb, I'm glad he's getting another shout out on this program. I know earlier in the season I was hyping him up, hoping that he, as a rookie, a young rookie in this league, would have a great season. And I do think you're right. He is developing, and it's great to see another young talent out of Onondaga starting to shine in the NLL.
So Benedict, we watched his first goal, and it's a nice one. This is a very confident play by the young man. He comes on the floor. That's him at the bottom of the screen. Just got the pass. He's going to send it back across, and watch this cut. And nobody is watching him. They all just lose track of Caleb Benedict, and that celebration is the celebration of a guy who has not played much recently, played the week before, not a whole lot went on, but he has scored a big goal. And you could just about see as he celebrated the way he was like, yes, I'm there. And it shows up in the rest of the game. The next one we're going to go to is his second goal of the game. And this is one, we're still in the first, but the second goal, I think, is a really nice one because he is coming off the bench in transition. He is the first guy off the bench in the transition. And what an opportunity for him. There's a great play in the defensive zone for Georgia to come away with this. And they just race up the floor, and Jordan McIntosh sees him, splits the D with that pass, and Benedict looking very, very confident.
Yeah, and you can see him at the beginning of that play as it's developing in transition. He was very quick to turn and start moving up the floor. So he had the peace of mind, or it was on his mind to, start going up the floor and being available there in transition.
Was he on the floor? I thought he came off the bench.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he comes off the bench.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, then yeah. So
yeah, you see him up there, taken off the bench. Really nice. He waits as well. I mean, it also, when you're a young guy and you're the first guy off the bench in transition, it's so easy to jump. And he did a nice job of knowing he didn't have to push the boundary. And he just comes out. That's him at the top there taking the pass. And the goals are really nice. There are 3 other plays that he makes. And one's actually going to refer back to what you were just talking about to an extent. And we're going to look at those plays that he made later in the game. And the first one of these non-goal plays we're going to take a look at, this is a sensational over-the-head wrap check as they're in the forechecking zone or in the offensive zone. Benedict, again, at the bottom of the screen, there he is running back towards center. Look at this play on Curtis Romanchuk, goes over the head with the wrap, a la Zach Currier, who's really nailed that one and gets the possession back for Georgia. That's just a terrific play. I feel a little badly for Curtis Romanchuk because I didn't think he had a great game. I think he's been playing really well. We've talked about him, finally getting a chance to stick in the NLL. I think he's earned it, and he's played really well. Not his best game, including this moment when Caleb Benedict just robs him at center floor.
Yeah, I think that, just another example, Stamper, of kind of his versatility and his ability. All 3 of these plays that we've seen so far, he's doing something a little bit different. And I think that as we've highlighted players throughout this season, it's great to see that he's really showing that.
We're going to see another. That was a back check. We're going to see a forecheck effort here, I guess you would call it, and on his next play. And it's a question. There's the shot is blocked. Watch the work he does to just keep the pressure on and force a turnover and get this ball back. And just fantastic effort again. Unfortunately for Curtis Romanchuk, he's the guy victimized here. But just terrific effort. And the one thing, goal scoring will come and go. Sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're not. And that'll come and go. But hard work is always available. And Benedict shows that here.
Yeah, and it's nice to see. I'm just going to, give a shout out to another rookie who had a very similar play like that this weekend in Graydon Hogg in Rochester. It's nice to see some of these young guys doing that extra work. If they lose possession, they're not just getting off the floor. They're really hustling. And I feel like that's something that the best teams do. We see that Buffalo do that time and time again off a missed shot or on a loose ball. They are fighting for that opportunity, for that extra possession. So for, again, a young kid to have that forethought is great.
Yeah, the Graydon Hogg play was fantastic. We're going to take a look at one more. And this is where Benedict's going to take a shot. I don't mind this shot at all. it's a pretty good decision for him to take the shot. But what he does are we on the last one? No. Is this the last one? It's where he shoots and then hustles back. So what he does, sorry, we're having the highlight roll here. So he comes in, he takes a shot, and he realizes that the ball is going to go the other way. So he immediately is off in reverse or in defensive transition movement, which I just love. I mean, this is not a bad shot. It opens up. It's a decent lane. Look at that. He is gone. He is off to the races before the Halifax player covering him can get past him and get open for a look down the floor, which is huge. You see Karafenko and Thompson, those guys heading to the bench, largely because there was no chance to push in transition because of what Benedict did there.
Yeah, insert my previous comment right here about him going in transition and hustling back there. But again, a brilliant highlight package here for Benedict, because it really did feel like this was one of his, probably it was his most complete game we've seen from him in the National Lacrosse League. And, George is going to need that down the stretch. And once we're getting into the playoffs, if they are going to make the playoffs, you need that offensive depth. You need that those guys who are going to do the gritty stuff. So it's great to see someone like a rookie doing that.
Yeah. We're going to take one more look from this Halifax at Georgia game. And this is one, Halifax coming onto the offense. And you're going to watch Cody Jamieson will take the pass right there at the restraining line, passes it back off, comes through. Doesn't look like a whole lot. He's just going to come down the middle. Jacob Hickey, a rookie who has played very well for Georgia and has been a great addition to the first-round draft pick a couple of years ago, stayed in school at Western University, has been playing very well, gets absolutely schooled by the veteran Jamieson on this play. This is a play that forwards do all the time. You come in, you chop down on the defender's stick to try and tie up their hands, get your hands free, and to tie them up and let yourself get in for the drive. It doesn't usually work that well. But Jacob Hickey was a little bit nonchalant. I mean, he sees Jamieson, he's staying with him, but just wasn't prepared for the sudden ferocity of that check down. Cody Jamieson kind of sold it by looking pretty casual, as he can do on a floor, right? He'll just be kind of like, don't be fooled. His mind is always going, even if it doesn't look like his body is doing too much of the time. And as soon as he saw Jacob Hickey was too relaxed, Jamieson, chop, go, pass, goal. And that is a veteran Cody Jamieson play.
And, it's been really great to see after Cody Jamieson missed some time and, the beginning of the season wasn't having a Cody Jamieson-like year, but over his last 4 or 5 games has really been clicking. And a little bit of history can be made this weekend as he's now officially tied with Jeff Shatler for the most goals, regular season goals by an Indigenous player in NLL history. So one more goal this weekend puts him over the top there. So with the 2 goals, he gets a score later in the fourth quarter there. It's great to see Jamieson finally stepping up and getting the rhythm that we expect him to be in.
So that's the goal. So isn't he also on the verge of 1,000 points, becoming the first?
In a way, yeah.
So pretty cool. I mean, that's those kind of career milestones, and just shows you that we kind of assume. There's always been First Nations players in the game. You always just think of it as, it's their game. They've shared it with us. You always just think of it as a game that they're central to. But it's kind of shocking to realize that that's the first time someone's hit 1,000 points. That there aren't as many First Nations players that have had long careers as you might think. And I think it's a bit more of a recent development, and it's great to see, because boy, the Haudenosaunee players bring an awful lot to the game.
Oh, 100%. And then it's so many different facets too. And I think, one thing that's great about Cody reaching these milestones, and I've spoken to him on previous milestones before, is that, he wants to be a leader in the community. He wants to help continue to grow the game within the youth. And so when he can hit these important milestones and show that he can be a leader on and off the floor, that is only going to inspire the next generation of Indigenous lacrosse players.
Yeah, and he's a GM. He is the GM for the Six Nations Arrows of the Ontario Junior Lacrosse League. And it's interesting, actually. it occurred to me because I was watching that game and I was writing about Ryan Lansbury in Rochester, what a great season he's having. Of course, Georgia traded him, and I was looking Georgia's right side is entirely Indigenous players with Lyle Thompson, Miles Thompson, Brendan Bomberry, and Caleb Benedict at this point, and Seth Oakes. What he said, they've got 5 righties, every one of them an Indigenous player, and I don't even know what that means. It just means, I guess, a lot of Indigenous players, but and it's not a big deal in some ways, right? Like, who cares whether you're Canadian, American, Indigenous, whatever? But it is important, you know, to see the representation and recognize that everyone's getting a chance to play.
Right, 100%.
Now, you were going to talk a little bit. Are we doing this? Are we talking the Buffalo Vancouver game?
Yeah,
was pretty fantastic. I think it
was unbelievable.
Yeah, we've got the last 30 seconds or so queued up, right? And you're going to talk about that.
Oh my God! I mean, there were so many plays. I'm forgetting now when we saw, and we've seen it with Christian Del Bianco throughout his 3 starts now. But there was a time when Ryan Martell was in the crease, and Ian McKay was trying to fake Del Bianco, out, and you saw just the agility and athleticism and the quickness from Del Bianco. And in this final section here, I mean, just look how dialed in the movement with the feet. Buffalo, you know, I know on social media, and you can kind of see it. We didn't necessarily see the crisp passing that we normally see here from the Buffalo Bandits. Normally there's a lot of more crisscross, fast, kind of moving the ball around, but you know, just Del Bianco so quick and moving side to side, and then the agility to get down, to be prepared in every moment. And I think he made like 4 or 5 saves in this final section here. Really stood tall. Again, you see there getting low, getting down. He didn't allow for any 5-hole goals there. And I think that this is just the value of having a very athletic goaltender. And, you know, we also saw on a couple occasions, you know, again, where he's just been so valuable on those outlet passes, trying to move the ball up the floor. It really does feel like Christian Del Bianco is a tremendously valuable piece that is changing this Vancouver Warriors club right before our eyes. And I think that it's giving so much confidence, not only to the defense in front of him, but also, you know, because he's moving the ball up, that offense is really starting to click. Adam Charlambides, Keegan Ball, you can see the confidence brimming from Keegan Ball in his interviews, and after he scores, he's back to being that kind of 1A in terms of NLL kind of figures, leaders, just really being special. So, I mean, everything's on the up and up for Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about it in my 5 things this week, that it was worth everything Vancouver had to give up to Calgary. And they gave up a lot. Braden Laity, a couple of first-round picks. I mean, they definitely gave up a package, and you can see why it's worth it. Even though Aiden Walsh had a good season, has had a good season and was playing well, the difference is Del Bianco is just the guy. And you know, we've seen it time and again, and that does give you that confidence. You know, you talk about the athleticism, and there was one play in the Rochester game that I just want to mention quickly where Rylan Hartley, there was a play where he got knocked, the net got knocked down. Yeah. He's knocked back into the net and he falls over. I don't think this is it because I didn't mention it. So if Greg and Charity have the clip, that would be kind of an ESP thing. But you know, he gets knocked over, the net gets knocked over, and he's down on the floor. He is up and going to the bench before the opponents can even take off to get him, to get back against him. He's getting out there because it's late in the game and they need him to get to the bench. So it was remarkable, just that athleticism and drive and awareness that you see in some of these players.
Yeah, and you know, I think that, you know, one thing that's been very interesting to see, and you saw it actually with Frank Chiliano also make an acrobatic save this weekend. I'll credit his save a little bit to Dad's strength. Now that, you know, it kind of, to me, I was thinking to myself, what does it look like when a man is trying to catch a falling baby off of a chair? And that's what that save reminded me of. But yeah, it's been phenomenal, and I think, you know, Christian is just so valuable. I think you're right, that he really is a piece that's really changing things. And Rochester too. I mean, they're on a 5-game win streak. But I'll give you an interesting nugget, Stamper, about Christian Del Bianco and his. He's got a chance now to have 4 consecutive wins in 4 consecutive starts. The only other player in the last, I believe it's 15 years, but definitely since the team moved to Vancouver and was the stealth even, the only other goaltender to have 4 consecutive wins and 4 decisions is Aiden Walsh. So it is not often that happens, but Aiden Walsh was the benefit.
Oh, Adam's kind of breaking up.
I try and provide the best.
I like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Greg,
you about
you look like you have something to say.
I do. I was going to ask you about that, and Josh even made the comment that Vancouver is fun again. What do you guys see the future for Aiden Walsh now that Del Bianco is back there? Because I think his value went through the roof, before they made the Del Bianco trade. Just kind of wondering what your guys' thoughts on that is.
Well, I will say, one, the comment about making the NLL fun again was a veiled jab at Adam. Not even that veiled, because he said something about Buffalo making the NLL less fun because they were just winning all the time and stopping people from scoring. And he didn't, it was a bit of a joke, right? And people have kind of run with that a little bit. So that was a pretty good shot. Not a bad shot.
I love it. I was actually looking to lean into it, Stamper, and get some Buffalo Bandits Unfun t-shirts.
Nice.
Yeah, the people that understand.
You mean like it says fun in a circle with a line through it?
Oh, that's a good. Yeah, something like that. I would love that.
Go ahead.
Especially
I only need like 20%.
Especially once I'm up in Buffalo during the playoff race. But yeah, I think what we're seeing, especially down the stretch here, and it is unfortunate that the Bandits are going through what they're going through, but we are seeing more parity and a level of unpredictability in this final half. That I think is very exciting for all fans. It is no doubt, and I believe fully that Buffalo has been having so much fun for the last 3 years. How could you not? They're on a historic run that should be remembered and applauded for years and years. But I think it is great that now you're seeing so many different markets being able to celebrate so many different accomplishments. And I think that that's fantastic for the future of the sport.
And after I led us down that rabbit hole, I'll actually answer the question you asked, which is Aiden Walsh. What's he doing? We're pretty sure he's going to Calgary, right? As the future considerations in that trade. That's definitely the sense we've gotten. So he'll probably go to Calgary. And who knows if Nick Rose will be there. If he goes to Calgary, I think Aiden Walsh very likely is the starter there next year.
Oh, interesting. So you think that if Nick Rose stays, that, with the minutes he's logged and where he's at in his career, he gives up that number 1 spot?
No, I think Nick Rose goes back to Toronto or somewhere. If Nick Rose stays, I think he's the starter. They're not signing Nick Rose in Calgary to be a backup. I just think if Nick Rose returns to Toronto, which seems fairly likely. Troy Holochuk's played well. I think there's still a few games to see. Yeah. Troy Holochuk could really kind of grab hold of that, but that's right. Not a jab. Backing up Adam. That's right. But sorry, I'm just looking at the comments. But yeah, I think Walsh, if he goes there and they don't have Rose, I think he's the starter.
Yeah, I would agree. But I also think that, with the way that Jamie Dowick has set this up, with a lot of unrestricted free agents who can reject the franchise tag, he's probably, expected at least some of those guys to come back. And I think Nick, with his involvement with the Rock organization and the track and the history he's had there, and knowing that, the reality is he doesn't have many years left, and who knows how many quality years he has left, that giving him that opportunity in Toronto where he made himself, it just feels like the poetic and right thing to do. Although
he did post recently, because the Oakville Rock in the summer actually traded Rose to Peterborough to play for the Lakers, where they're trying to go on a Man Cup run, and he did post something on Twitter about how he had a nice birthday present for Jamie Dowick until he traded him twice in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think
that was a joke.
I do believe it was a joke, but what a quality tweet that was! That was brilliant. Yeah.
That won the internet that day. Yeah, and it is interesting with that. Like, does Mitch DeSnoo go back? I would think so. After I, I got to think going back to Toronto is probably more appealing for him being back where he was than going back to Philly with the way they've tailed off this year. But I mean, he's been great in both. There's lots of factors, but one thing you talked about the trades and the stockpiling. Right now, as it stands, Toronto has the first 3 picks in this year's draft. That is
unbelievable.
Really something. You could get like CJ Kurst, Cam Trumbull, and Braden Saris.
I mean, oh my goodness. Do you remember, Stamper? Would that be the first time? I would imagine it'd be the first time that's ever happened.
I think so. I'm trying to tell. I mean, teams have had a couple of picks at the top. Minnesota at the time had 1, 2, and 4. They had.
I'm going back quickly.
They got Jackson, Sorensen, and Matisse.
Yeah.
I think it was, or Sorensen.
So in 2013 they had 1, 2, and 4, and they picked Logan Schuss, Jason Noble, and Cameron Flint.
Oh yeah, that was a bad move. They traded up from 5 to 4 to take Cam Flint, he was a good player in junior. He just never made it in the NLL, and Saskatchewan just sat at 5 and took Robert Church.
So, Stamper, credit your memory, though, because it was 2012 where Minnesota had 2, 3, and 4 Brock Sorensen, Kyle Matisse, Shane Jackson.
3 in a row, that's right. In 2012, the first pick was Matthews.
Yes.
After that
there you
trade.
Go.
Yeah.
2015,
if you want to pop that one up, Georgia had 4 of the first 6. They had 1, 3, 5, and 6. They took Lyle Thompson, then Jesse King, and then Chad Tutton and Randy Stotts.
Oh, Stamper, spot on. Well done.
That's a pretty good run. And what a draft, because Graham Hossack went 2nd and Wes Berg went 4th.
Yeah.
To Calgary. What a draft.
Do you have that in front of you, or is that all off memory?
No, I 2015 draft is kind of burned in my memory. And,
I mean, you are the NLL draft expert, but my goodness, Stamper, that was impressive.
I remember talking to John Arlotta, the Swarm GM, and saying, if I was at that draft and I was in your position, I don't think I'd leave without Graham Hossack. I just feel like I felt like he was going to be such a game changer, but it's pretty hard to argue with that Thompson, King, Tutton, Stotts group.
Yeah. And it is interesting, at least, I went to the very, very reliable and incredible work of John Hoffman at swarmitup.com. And at least going back to the 2004 NLL draft, no team has had 3 picks in a row for the first draft. So at least we know in 21 years it hasn't happened, but probably before that as well.
Yeah. I think we should wrap up the first section, and we will come back and talk about it's funny because I'm always like, oh, we should probably wrap up. And I'm the one who sends us off in all these tangents. But we're going to wrap up. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, anytime I feel like we go down those rabbit holes, I mean, that's really what makes this show so great, is because you see what you were just able to recite and, what we were able to learn. I mean, all these listeners who a lot of them may be newer to the game and they might not remember all these drafts. I mean, this is so valuable to just pick up in a natural conversation.
When we come back, we're going to talk about Rochester and what they've been doing lately, and some other elements in the league. And of course, we still have the less accurately named "Humiliate the Host" section. It's becoming less accurate because we've actually become more accurate in our picks. I don't know why. I think we stopped overthinking. Look at all of that when we return to ITWOBL, Inside of the World of Box Lacrosse, here on Blue Squatch Productions.
everybody, and welcome back to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. That is Steven Stamp. I am Adam Levy, and behind the scenes, Greg and Charity Beecher. They're making this all a beautiful product. We are in the next segment of the show, and we're going to talk.
I almost derailed us just as we were coming back live, right?
Yeah,
it's my superpower is getting us off track, like I just did. Go ahead.
And so we are about to talk about the team that more people, especially in the Western New York area, need to be talking about, which is the Rochester Nighthawks. Sorry, Buffalo Bandit fans, I know you feel I'm picking on you, but the Rochester Nighthawks right now are on a 5-game win streak, and that was because of this phenomenal effort against the very strong, gritty San Diego Seals, who, they haven't been their best this year, Stamper, but I think that, we've seen such great things from them. Westberg leading the way there. They've had a lot of injuries. That's been a bit of an issue. But in this game here, we saw the great battle between Trevor Baptiste and Mike Sisselberger. And I remember asking Coach Hazen about that battle as that game was kind of taking off. And he was saying it was going to be a 50-50 battle, and he was almost right. I mean, for the rookie Mike Sisselberger to do that against Baptiste was very impressive. And there was a little bit of a dispute at one face-off at the end. And I actually love to get your thoughts on this because you are very knowledgeable about the rules. There was a controversial face-off with, I think, a minute left where Trevor Baptiste seems to clamp it in the back of his stick. And then there was a discussion with the referees. In terms of the rules, how does that play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to clamp it in the back of the stick and come out, but you can only take one step. I think that's the issue, and he took a couple of steps. Were they calling timeout?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the thing that's tricky is when did the official hear the timeout call, right? Because if Baptiste comes out of it, takes a step, and Patrick Merrill's yelling timeout, and the official is like, "Okay, they've got a timeout. I'm going to blow it." Baptiste could take a couple more steps before the whistle is blown, but the referee, it's when he intends to go blow the whistle, right? So I think that's probably what happened. I guess kind of a heads-up play by Baptiste, just toss his stick aside and let the ball drop out. I'm not sure it was stuck in the back of the stick. I think the big question is how many steps did he take before it came out and before the play was blown down. I am of the inclination that the refs heard the call of timeout by one step and then gave them the timeout. So I think it actually wasn't as controversial as it appears, because for sure he took more steps. And I mean, that goes back to Jeremy Thompson taking too many steps the first year they had the rule in the final against Georgia, right? When Jeremy Thompson won, took a couple of steps, and he couldn't believe the call, but it was the right call. So I think it was probably okay, but it sure looked, without knowing for sure the behind the scenes, I think it looked pretty shaky.
Yeah, but I have to then, and then we'll go back and talk about the third quarter and how San Diego stormed back there. But, for Rylan Hartley, not just in that final possession for San Diego, but, really down the stretch there for him to step up. Huge moment for him. And then, of course, the fantastic finish by Ryan Smith there to give Rochester a much, much needed victory at home. They've been so much better on the road. And I know that there was about 5,300 fans in attendance there in Rochester, but, hopefully during these final 2 home games, there's even more crowds there, and the wins are not as nail biting, but really important for them to win those kinds of gutsy, hard fought victories. But to give away a 12-6 lead and let San Diego get back into that, that's a little nerve-wracking if you're Mike Hazen.
Oh, no kidding, right? I mean, it's bizarre. And the thing, I think, you talk about the crowds and what they can do, and there's a story up on IL Indoor that just went up a few hours ago as we're recording this, that you wrote, Adam, about fans starting to come back to Saskatchewan. And, in SaskTel Center, they're starting to get there. And the rush, Ryan Keenan saying, "Oh, we weren't that good for a while." You want to play well in front of your fans. It does help. I don't think it's the only thing. I don't think you have to be winning championships to get crowds. But I tell you, it's been electric in that arena, the Blue Cross, when I was there for the championship against Calgary, when there was the mini game. And I mean, the mini game, love it or hate it, it was pretty weird, but
yeah,
it was certainly exciting.
Right.
When a mini game happened, I was in the building for a few of those, and in different buildings, and it was electric. The crowd in Rochester, if they are getting something they can really sink their teeth into, they will get big numbers and they will get electric crowds. I think one of the things for Rochester that's been going so well, that's interesting about this is I thought Ryan Lansbury, I know he had like 6 assists, didn't have his best game. He was kind of snake bit when it came to goal scoring, right? He hit like 3 crossbars or posts, and had a couple of plays that really didn't go his way. I thought Matt Gilray, I'm a huge Matt Gilray fan. I think he is one of the top handful of transition players in the league. He did not have his best game. He had took some. He's going to take penalties. You're going to, as a defender, who plays tough, you're going to take some penalties, but he took some that probably would rather be able to avoid, and just made some mistakes. There was one goal that San Diego scored on a rebound that Matt Gilray was covering the player who eventually scored right on the top of the crease and just kind of let him go, which is very un-Matt Gilray. I thought it was a very strange game for him. And I think he'll bounce back and be great again. And he did still make some really good plays, but I thought they didn't have all their players, their top players, playing at their best for some of this game, and they still found a way to win, which is critical.
And then also the elephant in the room that we haven't addressed yet is, what is the impact of the injury to Ryland Reese? It definitely did not look good getting caught up, his leg and knee getting caught up there between Trevor Baptiste. They're, from the latest that I heard, waiting on the MRI results to come in and to get official word on that. I know that there had been some concern from within Rochester that it might not be great, but I texted Ryland, and I know that he's hoping to get back as soon as possible. So we'll have to see what the official word is on the injury. One
thing that could work in their favor, of course, is they're in a really good position to get into the playoffs down the stretch. I think you go on Graham Parrow's, you follow Graham Parrow, and he's been listing lately the percentages, the percentage of the available. There's like 2,100,000. There's over 2 million possible ways that all the last 21 games of the season could play out. He just taught me how you figure that out. It's the number of games. No, it's 2 to the power of the number of games left. So it's 2 to the power of 21. So now I can figure it out, because I'd always write to Graham. These days, when I send him questions, he tends to be like, "You can find that here, or you can figure this out like this." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's so great. Are you saying you don't want me to keep bothering you?" But I don't think he is. I think he's just trying to be helpful. But yeah, so there are so many ways, but 99.9% of them apparently see Rochester making the playoffs. So they're probably going to make it, which is huge, because they don't have to rush Ryland Reese back, because he's such an important part for them day to day, but also long term.
Right. And I'm trying to find it, a tweet that I had put out a few weeks back when I was looking at their second half schedule. And I had said at that time quite boldly, but now I feel more confident about it, is that I felt that don't be surprised if Rochester is hosting a home playoff game. And not only the way that they're playing right now, but then, of course, if you look at the rest of the schedule, especially comparatively to some of the other schedules that those teams that are competing for those home playoff spots have, Rochester, it's looking really good.
Who did they play their last 2 games?
Rochester plays, let me see here, they play Ottawa and Toronto both at home.
Yeah. So interesting, because they haven't done that well at home this season.
Right.
Their fans have been talking about it, so is that a big edge? I mean, the big win over San Diego notwithstanding, and Ottawa, who are really getting rolling now.
Yeah.
And then Toronto, who, they're pretty good. I know they traded away all those guys, but they're doing pretty well. Like they've won some good games lately.
They have, for sure. I feel like if they're in a lot of, or pretty much everything hinges on this coming weekend against Ottawa, because basically the kryptonite to a great offense is great goaltending, and to face Zach Higgins, is going to be a big challenge. But if they can get over that hurdle and win their 6th straight, which, by the way, another great nugget for you, Stamper. Last 2 seasons ago, they started the season 6-0. But other than that, the last 6-game win streak before that was 2007 in the city of Rochester.
And they won the championship that year, right?
Yeah, they also won 14-2, which I don't know if that'll ever be replicated again. But yeah, so not often you see win streaks like this, and for them to have a chance to win their final 7, which I think looks very possible. Yeah, Rochester is a great story right now, and selfishly, Stamper, I'm hoping for a Rochester playoff game, because if the scheduling gods can schedule it where Rochester and Buffalo are playing on a Friday, Saturday in that first weekend, I'm going to be at both games and I'm going to love both of them.
That'd be awesome. That'd be a great weekend for you. Yeah, and I would venture to say that probably nobody's going to go 14-2 again, given that we have an 18-game season. And if there's there'll probably be games added rather than taken away. That's just the smart ass in me coming out. But
well, it's funny because we knew, we had a strong feeling. We didn't know, but we had a strong feeling Buffalo wasn't going to be perfect. But there was that point when they were 8-0, where we were saying, okay, this team might be 16-2, might go 15-3. It's just, I think that in the case of Buffalo, and to your point about not seeing a 14-2 team again, is, what we're seeing with Buffalo shows just how difficult it is to go 14-2 or have an incredible record like that.
Yeah, and we have a question. It's a turnover. It's a violation. No penalty, but you turn the ball over if you do have the ball in the back of your stick for more than one step. It's just a turnover, and it's like jumping early, which very quickly, when you talked about going up against Trevor Baptiste and how well Mike Sisselberger did, one of the things I find interesting is people always talk about how strong Trevor Baptiste is, right? He's like a bull. He's so solid. So if you get into a battle with him, he's going to lean into you, and he's so strong he can push you away. But watch how quick he is. You almost have to jump if you're going to get the ball against him on a faceoff, because his hands are so quick. His reaction speed, his reflexes, unbelievable for somebody that strong. I mean, he's worked at it very hard, but a lot of guys work hard on faceoffs, right?
Yeah, and, but I think sorry, that brings up just a really good point by you, because I think that particularly with field guys transitioning to the box game, one of the things I always hear from them that they love is the fact that they can look at the referee and they can kind of get a sense on the whistle. And I think that they are chomping at the bit to be able to do that, because they can't do that in the field game. And it's a whole different dynamic at the face-off. And I think that what they're learning in the box face-off is benefiting them greatly in all facets of the face-off game.
The first guy that I saw that I remember seeing looking up at the official, the ref when face-offs were coming, was Mike Atwood, who actually was a goalie for a lot. He was I believe he was named the MVP in the first year of CLAX as a goalie, and then became a face-off guy. I mean, he'd done both through his life, but taking face-offs, and he'd be sitting there looking at the ref, waiting to see, and it gives you that edge. I think it's because the speed of light is faster than the speed of sound, right? So you would see just microsecond, you see the referee's cheek bulge when he's blowing the whistle before you hear the sound. So it gives you that slight edge. I don't know. I'm not a science guy. I'm not Bill Nye, but I think that's why you.
Yeah, I mean, that especially, I mean, with a play as vital as the face-off, I mean, you see guys who are F1 racers and others who are working on those agility and quickness and reaction plays. And I think you see that in a lot of face-off drills now, finding different ways to be there, especially without a face-off violation. So I think that's a great point.
The other thing Mike Atwood would do sometimes is he would just go and play with the ball in the back of his stick. He would just take off, because it didn't used to be the rule. That's a relatively recent rule, the last handful of years. He would win faceoffs on the back of his stick, just go down, run down at the net, and shoot and score sometimes with the ball in the back of his stick. He just never bothered to flip it over, because he could shoot well enough with it on the back, which is just wild. But obviously wouldn't happen in the NLL. But that was fun watching Mike Atwood do that. He's still playing. He played in the PBLA. He's still. I mean, he's still a pretty impressive player.
Well, a very cool history nugget there. But yeah, I think, unless you've got anything else, Stamper, I think that's it on praising the Rochester Nighthawks. I think it's time to not praise ourselves and humiliate the host.
There we go. Welcome back, lacrosse friends, to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. It is time for Humiliate the Hosts, aka the weekly predictions. And should we look at let's look at the season results now, because I've been doing well lately, so I don't mind seeing them. Adam's at 42 and 42. I'm at 45 and 39. Not quite as humiliating. It's hard, right? It's really hard. I was on the Rochester fan group page on Facebook the other day, and somebody was saying, none of the so-called experts, or I'll call them experts, were picking Rochester, except I guess Teddy Jenner did. And I was like, you may not be looking at enough experts picks or so-called experts picks, because I consider myself a so-called expert. And
I think that's fair.
And I took Rochester. So there you go. But they'll be thrilled that there's a big segment on the Nighthawks in this week's show. That was the previous segment. Now we are going to look at our picks for this week. And I don't know about you, but I decided to leave it because I think overthinking has done me in before. I've left it until right now to really think about who I'm going to take. So I'm going to let you pick first with Calgary at Saskatchewan. I'll go first. I'm going to take Saskatchewan. They're playing really well.
I'm going to also pick Saskatchewan. I think this is, what happens sometimes with writers, and I'm sure you know this, Stamper, where, after writing a story about Saskatchewan and getting all pumped up and hearing the inside perspective, it's hard not to start to believe in what they're saying. But, overall, they have been arguably, when you look at the full season so far, the best team in the league, maybe the most complete team, especially with Buffalo struggling right now. So Saskatchewan for me.
I'm taking them mostly because I expect them to get the Levi bump.
Yeah, I love that. And it does work sometimes. So
there you go.
Very happy about that.
Albany is at Vancouver.
Yeah, this is going to be a great game. This is going to be fantastic. Who do you got, Stamper?
It is so hard. I mean, Christian Del Bianco has been amazing. Vancouver's playing great, but it's hard to win every week in the NLL. Albany has been playing very well. The one thing I don't know yet, and again, we're doing these picks as we're doing the show live Wednesday morning. I would love to know if Alex Simmons is going to be ready to play. No Alex Simmons, I think the odds swing heavily in Vancouver's favor because they've got a lot of great players in Albany, but he is central to everything they do on offense. For that reason, I think I'll take Vancouver to keep rolling, but give me an asterisk. And if Simmons is playing, then maybe I take Albany.
Well, then let me be a little bit of a devil on your shoulder to try and sway you the other way. A guy you've been hyping up so much as Rookie of the Year in Will Johansson from the Victoria area has been at home now during the bye week and is very excited to be playing in front of a big crowd with family and friends in Vancouver. We've already seen what he's been doing so far. So are we going to see the best game from Will, and how is that going to impact Albany? Just want to throw that in there after you made your pick.
Right. I don't flop anymore because I did it once and it really came back to bite me. And by the way, Will Johansson is the Rookie of the Year, unless something really crazy happens in the last few weeks of the season. He's it. So
you would say that, let's say that Dyson continues to have a great finish here and even continues to make strides. Would you still pick Will over Dyson?
Probably. Yeah. Because I think I go back to my argument that you look at how they're performing at their position. I think Will Johansson is having one of the best seasons a D-transition player rookie has ever had. I think he's up there with, Owen Grant is a recent example. Robert Hope was fantastic as a rookie, but I think, I think he's had one of the great seasons by a defender. Dyson Williams has been very good. He's been the best forward in the league, but he's not really up the season he's had with the slow start. And I think he would tell you, and all the coaches there would tell you, it's not what maybe some people would have expected. He's playing great. And he's in my top three. Right? He's obviously part of it, but I don't think he's having the kind of season among all the seasons rookie forwards have ever had that Johansson is among defenders.
Yeah, you actually, I don't know the exact nugget for this one, but you have to go back at least 6 years to Austin Stotts' first year in the league, where I think he had 61 points, where you're going to find a rookie, the leading rookie point getter, be around 61, 62 points.
Mhm.
So overall, we haven't seen that rookie jump out. And I think, to your point, considering recent history, it's hard to give a rookie forward that award when there's been so many amazing rookie forward performances recently. Now, I know that I was just propping up Will Johansson, and it was great to talk to him on the Lacrosse Matrix podcast, not this week, but last week. You should go check that episode out on Spotify. But I'm going to pick Vancouver.
Because the Levi bump is fading a little bit for Johansson.
Maybe that, and also just because I think that, I love the story of what's happening in Vancouver, and I think that I really do feel, and I had put out a tweet, I think it was last week after their win, or maybe it was the week before, where it was really starting to feel like I'm getting 2019 Calgary Roughnecks vibes, the way that this Vancouver Warriors team has come together in the second half. And, now that it's looking pretty good, I think that they will make a playoff position, that they could make a Roughnecks-like run to the championship. And so, for story's sake, and for the sake of Vancouver continuing to catapult. And also, I just want to make a quick statement. I know this is a long pick, but I had come out and said,
I thought we'd moved on to next week's show.
that I had said that the Warriors' win over Buffalo was arguably one of their biggest wins in franchise history, and I do believe that for multiple reasons. First of all, beating Buffalo and Buffalo. This Buffalo Bandits team is incredibly difficult, but, for it to be kind of that solidifying victory after two that, weren't as complicated or difficult as the Bandits win, and with the change of Del Bianco and with the progression of this team, I think that we're going to look back at that Bandits win. If the Warriors, which I think we all believe they're going to be great in the future for a very long time, we're going to look back and say that was a watershed moment. That was one of those key early victories in the Miloski Del Bianco saga, where we're like, okay, this is a team that's for real.
That was almost worth the amount of time we spent on that. That was that's a really good point.
Yeah,
I am going to add that speaking of the cheering for the story, like, we don't cheer for teams in our position as covering the league and covering all the teams, but I have a story on Inside Lacrosse on IL Indoor that went out yesterday. It was my musings talking about the possibility of a 10-team tie for third place, with Buffalo, Saskatchewan ahead, Philly and Las Vegas out, and then 10 teams tied at 9-9. And it's not that weird of a series of events that would have to take it. It is far from the least likely of the 2 million plus scenarios that could happen, that with the series of wins and losses that could make it that. And it'd be kind of fun to see it all. I mean, it'd be horrible for Halifax, where we're going next, because in that scenario, they tie for third but finish 12th and miss the playoffs after such a great run. So that's tough. And Vancouver beating Albany would mess that scenario up, because Albany's got to be one of the teams that wins out. So part of me is like, come on, Albany, let's keep that the 9-9 train for everybody on track. But that's just, again, cheering for the story. We move on to San Diego at Halifax, and it's your turn to pick first.
So for this one, I am going to go. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. Very excited to see this one. I am going to go. Greg, you got it right. No. Go back to San Diego there. I am going to pick San Diego. With Halifax, they're great. They are a really good team. The thing about them, and I'd love to get your kind of historical insight on this, Stamper. They got such a great roster, and they do so well, especially they go on these great stretches, Halifax does. And then it just doesn't seem to pan out when it matters the most. And with a roster like they have, it continues to shock, I think, a lot of people that they aren't making more noise, especially when it comes to the postseason. San Diego, I think, is going to want redemption, and they want to be building momentum down the stretch here. Another team, kind of a similar situation to Halifax, where they've made it into the playoffs a bunch of times, but haven't gotten past the first round. Anyway, I think it's going to be probably the game of the week, but I'm going San Diego.
Yeah, this is such a tough one. And I mean, Halifax has been playing so well and winning a lot of games lately. The loss to Georgia was a tough one for them, but I don't know. I feel like you just never. San Diego coming back with those, that 6-goal comeback showed what they can do, and it's kind of like at the end of an NFL game where I think you really get the feel like if Patrick Mahomes has the ball, or back when if Tom Brady had the ball, it just feels, if you're cheering for the other team, it feels like something bad's going to happen. If you're cheering for them, it feels like, yeah, we got this. As a Denver Broncos fan, I would feel that way back when John Elway would have the ball at the end. I'm like, of course he's going to take him down and score. Peyton Manning, of course he's going to make this happen. So San Diego kind of has that feel for me these days. So I'm going to go with them to pull this one out, because they almost did it against astronomical odds in Rochester.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. So now with Ottawa and Rochester, we were kind of alluding to this game and, what could happen here. It feels like another close one. Stamper, do you want to go first, or you want me to take this one?
I'll go first. What the heck? Because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But it's interesting because I've been picking Rochester. I think Rochester's been playing very, very well. Zach Higgins had a bit of a down stretch, which it's a combo of the defense and him. But he certainly wasn't the goalie he was for a few weeks that he'd been earlier in the season. He looked good again, obviously bouncing back, and the offense is getting going. And I actually have to confirm this, but it would appear that Brett Hickey is now the offensive coordinator, right, for Ottawa.
He's been
on the bench. So I haven't heard back yet if that's officially the case or if he's just filling in. But whatever's happening, their offense seems to be really clicking. And I think this game means more to Ottawa than it does to Rochester. Rochester wants to win. Ottawa needs to win, so I'll take the Black Bears.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. And I know that one, because we didn't have the show last week, we haven't been able to give enough praise to Callum Jones being back in the lineup and the presence and everything that he's had for that team. It does seem like that's definitely sparked things on the defensive side as well. So, it really comes down to, defense versus offense here when we're looking at what both teams' strengths are. And, I think that you're right that Ottawa really needs this game. So do I want to pick Ottawa? I don't know, Stamper. I'm going to go with Rochester with this one. I'm going to keep that momentum rolling there. I think it's going to be another highly competitive game. I think that, one thing that's going to put them over the edge is Zach Higgins is going to play great. But not only have we been talking about Rylan Hartley playing great in between the pipes, I think he's going to step up. He's going to play up to his competition in Zach Higgins. And if you're getting some of that from Rylan Hartley, and you're getting the great offense, at least the amount of shots against Zach Higgins, which he's known, we've seen over the last few years, he's faced, I think, more shots than anyone else in the National Lacrosse League, but he's also, because of that, let in a lot more than most. And I think that that's probably going to end up being the case here in Rochester this weekend.
So Rylan Hartley has had some great games since he's been back. He's made some terrific saves. He's got that athleticism, he brings a lot to the table. Has he overall played better than Riley Hutchcraft?
I think what he's done is, that's a great question. That is a really good question. I think that what he's done in watching the Nighthawks, which is the big difference between the two, is because of his athleticism and his ability to move in between the pipes. He is making it tougher for goal scorers to try and figure out how to beat him. Whereas there is a method to beating Riley Hutchcraft. And if you can kind of figure that out and be in sync against Hutchcraft, you can have a lot of success against him, which we've seen throughout Hutchcraft's time in the NLL. Whereas with Hartley, yes, he'll have some stretches. Look at the San Diego stretch where they came back. But when you just don't know how you're going to beat him because, he is so agile between the pipes and he is able to make those athletic saves, I think it provides more of a challenge to opposing offenses, which I think gives him the edge.
It's a good answer too, because I look at the numbers and I look at the the way they've played overall, and I think Hutchcraft's been more consistent. I know Hutchcraft has better numbers, has better save percentage and things. And it's a good point but you can find a way to beat Riley Hutchcraft because of his style of play. It's like Nick Rowe can be playing great, but because he's more of a take up the space guy and get the angles, you can, if you can work it, you can score. Whereas I think there is a blueprint for beating Rylan Hartley. You make him think you're going low. He drops into the splits. You shoot it over his shoulder. It sounds really simple, but it's not that easy, right? So I think do we have look at that, 790 save percentage for Hutchcraft, 760 for Hartley. But I think there are stretches where Rylan Hartley is almost unbeatable.
Yeah.
And that is, kind of what you were getting at, was that there are times where he can just go on those stretches where you just start to think, how do we ever score on this kid?
Right. Now, what I also will say that is in the favor of Hutchcraft is that while those numbers, they only tell half of the story, because then you have to look at, well, who was Rochester playing when Hutchcraft was in between the pipes, in a much more difficult schedule for Hutchcraft than for Hartley. And so when you see the numbers even as close as they are right now, that I guess makes you think that Hutchcraft maybe gets the nod then over Hartley. But, this is why I don't want to be a head coach in the National Lacrosse League, Stamper, and I'd much rather be behind the keyboard.
Right. Let's move on. Philadelphia, Georgia. To me, this is fairly simple. Philadelphia is just spiraling, and Georgia has played really well. They had 3 tough games in a row, losing 3 1-goal games. The last one was with an empty netter, made it 2 goals, but basically 3 1-goal games in a row. And I think Georgia wins this one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on there. I think that it's one of those situations where, it's been quite shocking to see what's been going on in Philadelphia. The longest losing streak, I believe, this organization, and that's not only this franchise in Philadelphia, the previous franchise in Philadelphia has ever had, and that is definitely shocking. To be honest, I'm surprised that there aren't more Philadelphia fans who are being very vocal on social media, and I say that in the context of last season when things weren't going well. And they were calling for Paul Day to not be the head coach. They were extraordinarily vocal. And we're not seeing that kind of, at least public level of upset as we've seen in past years. Just trying to find a quick nugget for you here, Stamper. So it looks like, if I'm doing quick math here, 9. So it looks like only about 13 teams in NLL history have had a losing streak of 9 games or more. So Philly is really in not great territory right now. And I think because of that, as Greg has already moved my initial over to the Swarm, I'm gonna say the Swarm pick up this one.
My question on this one is, though, so Stamper, we talked about this last year. The defense gets better as the year goes on because of the film they're able to watch and make adjustments. Do you think that's kind of what happened with Philadelphia? They brought in Brendan O'Neill. They were running a different offense, had a bit of a streak, and then is it just the film and they haven't countered yet? Or what do you think is going on down there?
I think a big part of it is, O'Neill had a great start, and people figure out ways to deal with him. But also, Mitch Jones and Joe Resetarek were basically on pace with Dane Smith and Josh Byrne, or actually ahead of them, or on the similar pace all season for hitting like record scoring numbers, and that generally doesn't continue. Dane Smith keeps scoring at those levels, which is weird, really. You shouldn't be able to keep scoring and being that successful, but Dane Smith's just kind of a different cat, man. But I think people have figured it out a little bit and got him going, and I don't know that I loved giving up Holden Katoni for that offense in the trade.
And Holden's been, I know that the Desert Dogs haven't been winning, but Holden's, had goals in all 3 of his games with the Desert Dogs. He had a hat trick a couple weeks ago, so he's been fitting in there. Yeah, it's an interesting move. And I also will add, as another Levi bump, on this one of the 2 episodes of the Lacrosse Matrix podcast this week, Coach Ed Como joined me to talk about his career and all of those things. And Stamper, you'll love the bits of history where we go into his time with the New York Titans and what it was like for him to be coaching in Madison Square Garden. That was so cool to hear from him. So I think that the Levi bump will also help the Swarm.
There you go. And he's also the coach of the McMaster Marauders in Kufla. So, and we move on to Buffalo and Colorado. And I'll tell you the one thing that makes you wonder about this, Chris Cloutier just added to the injured reserve, which is huge. But I mean, Eli McLaughlin's out firefighting. Zed Williams is out for the season. Colorado's got all kinds of their own issues that they're going through. And it comes down, I just don't see Buffalo losing 3 straight games. I know they've been having some turmoil. I know they've gone from, are they going to lose to, why are both of us moving over there? Are they going to lose it all this season? Are they going to lose 3 straight? Yeah. I said from the beginning, yes, they're going to lose this season. I will say no, they're not going to lose 3 straight. I go with Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And also, to help back up your point, Stamper, Buffalo has only lost 3 straight once in the last 6 years. That was last season. 3 straight once in the last 3 years, and that was last season. So this would only be the second time in the last 6 seasons that would happen. I know Chris Cloutier may be out for this weekend, but at the same time, I'm going to give a little bit of a hot take, and I am going to pick Buffalo before I give my hot take. I don't hope this happens for Colorado, but with the injuries, and the way that they've been playing lately, I would not be surprised if they lose their last 3 games of the season. They arguably have the toughest final stretch in the National Lacrosse League, playing Buffalo, then Saskatchewan, and then on a short week going from a Saturday to Friday or Sunday to Friday matchup. You've got at Calgary as that final game. So that is not a stretch that is easy on them. So I don't hope that happens for Colorado, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Yeah. We move on to Toronto and Las Vegas, and Vegas is out of the playoffs. Toronto is hanging around. They're virtually out, but in my 10-way tie scenario, I believe they actually made it to the playoffs. I'd have to go double check. Maybe they didn't. There's a lot to remember in where all those 10 teams wind up finishing. But in this one, I'm just going to have to go with Toronto. I just think they're playing better, and it's tough when you're eliminated from the playoffs like Las Vegas to really get up to play a good 60-minute game.
Yeah, and I'm going to let the Levi bump carry me over to the Las Vegas Desert Dogs for this one, because Sean Williams, head coach and GM of the Desert Dogs, was my other guest on the Lacrosse Matrix podcast this weekend. I saw him in person during the phenomenal Buffalo Bandits Albany Firewolves game the other week, where he saw his son have one of the best overtime winning goals I've ever seen in National Lacrosse League history. I'd love to hear where that might rank for you once we're done with the pick'em, Stamper. But I'm so inspired by the way that Coach Williams talks about his guys and talks about the endless fight that they have. And he's promised me that they are not going to give up and let in at the end of the season. You've got some young guys like Jackson Webster who have played really well. I think he's been the best surprising rookie story. Maybe I think Will Johansson, we just didn't know what he was going to be doing after the injury. I think we all thought he would be very good. Did we know he'd be this good? I don't know. Coming off an ACL, but I think that Webster has been probably one of the best rookie stories this season. So yeah, I'm going to let the Levi bump just take me that direction.
And I'll tell you're down. I don't mean to rub this in, because you could just as easily be ahead in the season standings, but you are down by 3 in the season standings. We've only got 3 weeks left.
Yeah.
No point just picking the same teams. I should have been more assiduous and made sure we each picked half the games first to force you into making your pick. So I could just, because if I just pick the exact same team as you every time, then we know I win our season series, right? But that's not what it's all about.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm very.
Sorry to interrupt. I love how Greg just comes on to show that he's having trouble breathing because he's laughing. Everyone.
But yeah, Stamper, before we get going, because that game in Buffalo and Albany, I mean, what a finish. I mean, when you see that Dyson Williams goal, where does that rank among OT winners for you?
I mean, that's up there. You think of Buffalo and you have to think of the Tavares championship winner in OT quite a while ago, early in his career. John Tavares was the big one. Oh man, the beauty of it is it's a great shot. It's a terrific play. It's on the offside, and just looked. It didn't look like anything kind of not out of character, but it wasn't like he was reaching for something. It was the play that was there. They made a really nice play all around the whole. It was a good team play, and Williams, the rookie, in the moment with the brilliant shot to finish it. I mean, it's up there. It's right up there.
Yeah. I mean, it was the way that it happened, who it happened against. I mean, to do it at home in front of the largest crowd, the complete moment was very special. I tried to record it and I posted it on Twitter/X, my view from the press box, and I was so amped up from the game that I couldn't stop myself from yelling. Not because I was rooting for the Firewolves, but just because the moment was so incredible. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny, that happens when sometimes you're doing play-by-play or color commentaries. Play-by-play, you're going to be calling it, right? When you're color commentating, you're not really supposed to be jumping in and talking at a moment like that. But there are times, and I don't remember if Dan Ball did, but there are times you can't stop yourself from being like gasping or saying something as that happens. So that was an incredible game, an incredible play.
I gotta say that was huge. As a Firewolves fan, it's been getting better and better watching him. A rough start to the season, but honestly, I think it was just because they overperformed so much last year that people had the expectations. If you really look at this team with all the rookies and all the defensive injuries they had, I'm still pretty impressed with how they've played. But I'm not really looking at it from a one-season standpoint as much as keeping this team together and moving forward. I've been very impressed with how they've come together, and hopefully Simmons is healthy again. But it was just awesome to be a Firewolves fan and be a part of that.
And I mean, they're one missed illegal substitution call away from being 7-8, and like right in the thick of the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, they're really like right there. It's very cool. Also, awesome to see Kai, the goalie, joining the chat. Love that he's watching all of these shows, Stamper. I know he watches a couple of other programs as well, and so very cool that he is involved. It's great to see the youth who are involved with box lacrosse really getting engaged.
Yeah. I think that's it. We've been going for a long time this week. We're making up for last week when we didn't get to have a show, and that's because Greg, our illustrious behind-the-scenes leader, was having a hip replacement surgery, in case you missed it at the beginning of the show. So obviously a great reason for us to not have it. And Greg, I want to say we're really happy and excited for you, because I've been with you a lot of games. I know the pain that you've been going through, and how much it's impacted you trying to do things. And it's just great to see that you're able to get it. And the fact that you're already moving around a week later, that you're off the walker, and it's awesome.
The pain relief is absolutely amazing. I can't even put that into words. Yeah, Kai runs a YouTube channel too, all kinds of interviews and stuff. So check out Kai. He's definitely going to want to get you guys on his show, because he interviews more people than I do. He is a busy, busy man. Dobson is his personal goalie coach. So as long as you don't talk down about Dobson, Kai's awesome. He gets a little, he gets a little defensive if Dobson has a bad game. But we absolutely love Kai here. We're going to get him on Yeti Talks. If I had known it was spring break, I would have had him on last week. I thought he was on our spring break schedule. But no, huge shout out to Kai, and thank you guys so much. And like you said, Stamper, it is huge. The pain I am not feeling has been absolutely amazing. I can't even put into words just not having that hip pain for the last 2 days has been, it's incredible.
That's awesome.
And I'm just about as happy for Charity not having to listen to you whine about it. You can't get too nice and all super kind to Greg here. It's just not on brand. So we'll wrap up with that. Thanks so much to everyone watching. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Charity. And Adam Levy, I'm Steven Stamp. Check everything out at IL Indoor. And we will see you again next time on ITWOBL.